right. Hey everybody, flying solo today.
Hey Shane.
Hi, how's it going?
Hi.
Yeah, Lex, we mentioned last week, Lex's grandfather died and the funeral is taking place right now. So I'm flying solo. We asked other people here in the office if they wanted to get on the webcast, and everybody...
We'll keep you company on the mic.
Everybody just freaked out. No.
You can hear background sounds.
Right. Yeah, so Lex won't be here. As Lex said, I guess I won't be there to take your abuse.
Yeah.
My response was, you know what? Even with you not there, I'm sure the comebacks will be even wittier.
Generally how it goes.
It can only help. Yeah, what we're going to talk about today, this is something that I've been asking powers that be that we talk about, is because as I go out to a lot of your sites and I speak with customers on the phone, do training sessions, a fairly consistent theme is that reports and collections, there's this confusion about when to use some. Others, some people aren't even aware there's reports, and they're trying to use collections in ways that reports should be used. Rarely the other way around, but there are some examples of that too. So I want to kind of draw some lines on when you want to use a report, when you want to use a collection. So let's just go ahead and jump in. All right, so I have a report. Let me just go to my report. I created a custom reports folder. That was a little while ago. You can see some older reports from previous webcasts. By the way, if you want to create a report, you just right-click, go to a new report folder. That's if you want to create a folder, pardon me. And mostly what we're going to be talking about are basic reports and not SQL reports. So I've got a very basic report. You're going to just right-click and define it. If you double-click on it, it actually runs it. Yeah. Boy, okay, so Lex should have been here because he usually takes care of the
centering stuff. But yeah.
The most uncentered individual actually excels at centering. That's irony for you. All right. So here's the definition of a report. Now notice if you have, pro mode, and you've got pro mode, you need pro mode to create and save custom reports, and you need enterprise for the auto reports feature. But we're really going to cover mostly just these reports. So in the report, notice I've got, this is just all old versions of Firefox. If you look at the filters, I've got the filters tab highlighted here. These are just the filters. These are saying, okay, you're going to look at whatever computers you're searching for, you're looking for. Show me all the computers that have an application name that starts with Mozilla Firefox, and the version lower than, and you can see we've got a variable there. And so what is that variable? By the way, if you've upgraded recently to Inventory 11, you can always expand that variable just by putting your mouse over the little variable X, and you'll see that this is version 4902. It's very important if you're going to be using collections and reports, tracking things like versions, that you use variables. It saves you having to go and modify the reports and all the corresponding collections every time a version changes. All you have to do is change that value in preferences, go down to variables. There's your custom variables and your system. If you have enterprise level and you use the collection library, which I know a lot of you do, these are variables that are maintained by us here at Admin Arsenal. Any system variable begins with a $sign. They all have the convention open paren, close paren for the variable name. $sign means that it is a system variable, and @ is a custom. That's what you define. So I just created an app Firefox ver. You can call it whatever you want. And I just typed in 4902. So next week when version 50 comes out, you can just simply come over here and change that 4902 to 50.0. And all of your reports, all of your collections that reference that variable will be up to date. Anyway, so I'm going to go back to all the old versions of Firefox. So I just ran that. And these are all the machines. Now I'm going against all computers here. If you ever want to just change the collection source, so I'm looking for all computers, maybe you just want to look for workstations. You can always hit select collection source the time you run. And I've actually got some collections that I created based off of Active Directory OUs, and I've got Deadwood workstations. So now these are only going to have workstations, and correspondingly I've got servers. You can go against any collection that you've got defined. That way you don't have to change. I do see people in both, in reports especially, they're writing multiple reports. So you've got someone will say, okay, I'm going to have a report for Firefox for workstations, and then Firefox for servers, or Firefox in this organization, Firefox. You don't necessarily need to do that. You can have one report, and then just as you run it, whether it's from an auto report or when you just execute it, just change your collection source to whatever collection you want. And that saves you having to create so many different reports that are effectively duplicates. But this is great because I can run, I'm going to change my collection source here to just all computers. What's important about this? I'm looking at this report and I can see the name of the computer, and I can see which version of Firefox they have. I know they're older than 4902, which at this recording is the latest version, latest stable release. But I can actually see which version each has. You don't do that in collections. Now, I can create a collection from a basic report. When you create a collection from a report, or when you create a report from a collection, all that's grabbed really are the filters. So I'm going to go back to define report. Notice these filters, when I say save this as a collection, these filters are going to be retained. What's not retained are the columns, because a report can show a lot of information. Here I'm saying show me the computer name and the version of Firefox regardless of what it is. Collections don't do that, and I'll show you why. So I'm going to go ahead and say, you see this button up here, new collection from report. I'm going to click that, and it automatically opens up the new dynamic collection, and notice it saved those filters. But a collection doesn't have columns because a collection can only resolve back to a computer. So that when you're looking at a collection, all you can see is the data in the collection window. So I'll say okay to that, and it saved a collection on the root called all old versions of Firefox. You can see it there. I'll just move this up nearer the top. All old versions of Firefox. Now I'm going to open it up. There's those filters. When I look at it though, all I can see are the computers and the collection window. So these are all of these columns that are already there. Usually these are columns from the computer table. Notice I don't know what version of Firefox Abby has or Alcone. Why? Because if we tried to show that, this window would become unreadable, because Abby could have, especially depending on what you're trying to say, show me all applications, Abby could have 60 applications, therefore 60 rows of just Abby. So a collection will only show things in the collection window. Of course, you can always modify the collection window simply by clicking this top button here, customize this grid. And these are what we show in the window. You can also add columns. But these are columns, once again, largely from the computer table, or to be more specific, the computer view. And this is information that has a one-to-one relationship with the computer. There's one OS version. There's one OS serial number. You don't see things like services. You don't see things like applications, because those are many to one. Many applications can be on one computer. So when I see, here's a way I see people will go, okay, so I'm going to create, this is not what to do. Did we just lose that? There we go. This is what not to do. So I've got, instead of all old versions of Firefox, I've seen people do stuff like this. I'm going to duplicate this. Move that up here. And they'll say something like Firefox 49.0.1, and then they'll say, the version. Whenever you're doing versions, you generally want to do the version comparisons. Version equals, I'll just make this fast, 49.0.1. Okay, so these are the computers that have that version. And then they will create another collection, Firefox 49.0. And they'll keep on going down, so they have so many collections because they want to know at a glance which ones have a particular version. That's where reports come in, especially when you're talking about so many different versions of an application. So we don't have anything that has this 49.0. Yes, this is the wrong way to use collections. Collections are things that you act upon. So generally, I can look at this and say, these are all old versions of Firefox, and I can act on a collection. How is that? Well, I can right-click on this collection, and I can go to Tools, and there's a PDQ Deploy. If you have PDQ Deploy installed, there's a PDQ Deploy tool that will automatically open up Deploy. I'll just look for Firefox, and I can move that over and deploy Firefox to all of these computers in that collection. I can also create a schedule for a deployment. Say, hey, I want to deploy the latest Firefox to machines that have an old version. I don't care what version they have as long as I know they're below 4902. That's where a collection comes in. It's a great tool to just act upon. These collections, I know these are old versions. I know they have to get up to date. I don't care what version as long as they're up to date. But when you have to give a report to a manager, a collection is not what you need to do. The manager's like, I just want to know what versions of Flash or what versions are out there. That's where you can say, these are the versions that we have. Notice some of them, 4303, 453, these are pretty old. We've got to get these up to date. 4901 is just, a few weeks old. That's where a report comes in. I really want to drive that home. And once again, you saw how we created a collection from a report. The same is true. I can go over, let's just say I wanted to go to PowerShell 5. These are machines that have PowerShell 5. If I wanted to right click on that, go to New, you can say a report from a collection. What does it do? It creates a new report, basic, with those filters. And it always places, when you go from a collection to a report, it places one column in your columns, and that is just the computer name. Because that's pretty much all the collection has. But there's the filters right there. Now if I wanted to go in and say, hey, let's add some additional information here. I could say, show me the OS, and then show me, maybe leave the computer table or something like that, and go into file or something. This is what a report comes into, that you can drill down and see things that you can't normally see from a collection window. Cool, perfect. No, I won't save that one. If you have any questions, do we have any questions, by the way?
Yeah, let's throw one up.
We have a couple of things to ponder from Jason A. Dear Shane, how do I make a dynamic collection where the computer has a file and where member of collection is not VPN users, and where the computer has a file and where member of collection is VPN users?
Okay. I'm going to, hi Jason, and keep that question up there for a second. I'm going to assume when you say VPN users, you're talking about computers, because we don't track users necessarily. We can scan for the current logged on user, but that's as far as we go right now. So I'm assuming that VPN users, you're talking about computers that perhaps there's a collection for computers that have VPN users. All right, so what you're going to want to do, the answer is you're going to use two different collections. I think this is from an older webcast, but there was a person that needed to know which computers had an application.ini file. And if you open it up, notice we're using the file, we're using the actual file table here, saying show me any computer in this collection that has a file called application.ini in Mozilla Firefox, in a path that contains Mozilla Firefox /browser. Notice this little, if you can zoom in, I'm not sure if you can, anytime you use a file or a registry value, so file table, registry table, you're going to see this little warning. Ensure that files or registry scanners are properly configured. By default, we don't scan all files. We don't scan all registry values. That would be very, very irresponsible on our part. You have to define those. So you can, in fact, I'm just going to go to Heineken. I'm going to open up Heineken and I'm going to go to the files. Yep, you can see we are scanning for one file, application.ini. And a new feature that was just added in 11, you can see which scan profile put this there. You can see it's the application scan profile. So I have to cover this really quick, Jason. Go to your preferences. I just hit Control Comma to do that. Go to Scan Profiles, and there's Applications. And we modified, in this case, the current application or the default application scan profile to add a file scanner. You can always add scanners. Clicking the Add button, you can see all the information that we can add there. We added files. And what are we grabbing for? Well, it looks like we're grabbing files in multiple patterns. We're looking in program files and program files x86 in that directory for application INI. So once we built this scanner in this scan profile, we then scanned with this scan profile all the computers, and then those that had application INI would be in there. So to answer, so you had to have that part done. So you're scanning for a particular file, and then you're just literally going to create two collections. How you determine VPN users. So let's just say that you've got, let me just do a new dynamic collection real quick, and we'll just call this one VPN Users. And we'll just say the computer name starts with any computer that starts with V. Shouldn't be too many in there. There's just a handful. These are the VPN users, right? And then you could literally say, if you drill down underneath the application INI, just drill down from the parent collection. And then that means that only computers that are in application INI will be processed. We know these are the 3 machines that have that INI file. VPN users are there. Another way you could do that, if you don't want to have that collection underneath and you don't want to use a drill down, you could say, the computer starts with V. Actually, we'll change it to starts with M, since mention's in there. You could create another value filter, and it's going to be member of collection, and the name. And then you can actually choose in this collection, member of collection.
I think what Jason is having struggles with is the concept of any, not all, not any, and all.
Okay.
I guess the difference between those, if we want to get into that quickly.
Okay, hold on for a second. Let me just try something else. Yeah, I can jump on that. That's not a problem. I just want to look at something here. You could also just go to the computer collection, and there's an is member, which I like actually a little bit more. And you would select down application INI. So regardless of where your VPN users exist, you can just say, only show me computers that start with M, and they have to be a member of application INI, and there's mention. And then you do something corresponding. So as far as the any or not any, that's a great one. Do we want to jump into that one?
Yeah, I think it's part of it. He's saying that, I guess, drill down will bypass the issue that he was having it, but let's go over it just for giggles.
Okay. Let me think about how I can hurry and do this in this context. Okay, so let's say that we want to look for any computer that starts with M. Just to show the not any, I'm going to actually come up here to all. This is what's known. You can see that it's called a group filter. There's always going to be one group filter minimum. It's the very top, and you have your all, any, not all, or not any. So here I'm going to just create a new group filter, and I did that. I highlighted this so that it goes right underneath that, and I'm going to say, okay, so the computer has to begin all, meaning every filter underneath all, in all, is going to have to pass
every
true.
Condition needs to be met.
Everything needs, yeah. So this, in order for any computer to show up, it's going to have to say it starts with an M in this context. And then I'm going to create another one, and I'm going to move this one on down. And this might seem a little, this might seem a little weird, but I'm going to just say computer starts with M, computer collection is member of application INI. You could also just turn around and say not any. This could bring up a lot of different options. This could bring up a lot of different computers. So by not any, it means the computer has to start with M, but it cannot be a member of application INI. Why? Because we're saying is member, but we're negating that with not any. Not really the most intuitive thing to do, because that is member is how we were filtering out the file. But you can see how that works. Where the not any works really well is when you're talking about things that have usually a one-to-many relationship with a computer, such as an application. So we've got our old versions of Firefox, right? Let's go, I'm going to duplicate that. Move that back up here. And then the filter application name starts with Mozilla Firefox. If you wanted to find machines that didn't have Firefox, I'll just even remove this. This shows machines, if I just ran this, this would show machines that all have Firefox, regardless of the version, because I just removed that filter. Now I'm going to say, I don't want a machine that has any Firefox. So this would be more appropriately machines missing Firefox. So here we're just saying you still have to do the application name starts with, but then just negate that with like a not any. And then these are machines that don't have Firefox. And we can just do a quick test, open up Marge, go to applications and verify that there's no Mozilla Firefox, which there is not. All right. It can get a little tricky on the alls, the not any's. Just remember that if you're familiar with SQL, any, using the any group filter is usually the way of saying or, and all is and. All right, we're trying to make it a little bit more intuitive for people who don't understand SQL. But when you have things that are in a bunch of all groups, group filters, that's like saying it has this and this and this, whereas the any is this or this. All right. I hope that answers the question.
Me too.
Huh. All right. So just carrying that on a little further, I'm going to go to the collection library. Let's take a peek at hardware. Under hardware disks, we've got some collections. These are all machines that have low free space, less than 20%. But once again, unless we start drilling down each of these computers, we can't tell what percentage they have. All we know is that they are below a certain threshold. I'll open this up so you can look at the filters. Logical disk is the table that we're using. There's disks, there's disk drives, and then there's logical disks. So the disk drives, the actual disk drive information, you'll see that, you can see that table. Logical disk are obviously like your C's, your D's, etc. Anyway, so here we're saying the device is C, so we're looking for the C drive, and the free space is less than 20. But once again, I want to know what we're talking about as far as, all I know is they have less than 20. Maybe there's some that have 4. How do I find that out? Well, I'm going to right click on this, go to New, Report from Collection. All right, there's the same filters. If I run this, I'll get the same information effectively the collection's giving me. But since I'm in a report, now I can drill down and start adding columns. And what am I going to add? I'm going to go to Logical Disk. And we'll say the device, which is C, create a new one, Logical Disk Free Space, or free percent, hit save, run it, and now I get that kind of a breakdown that I can't get from the collection window. A cool thing about, once again, about the reports, I can't say, hey, let's deploy a package which deletes a bunch of data in the temp directory, maybe to help free up some space. I can't deploy that to a report. I can deploy that I can deploy that to computers in a collection. So the report is something that you would end up saying, hey, I want to just take this, go to print preview. And there's all sorts of, you can customize this quite a bit, and then send that off to your manager. Obviously, we recommend that you use something like the auto reports, something that you want to run. So I've got this report. Remember, I had this report created under custom called All Old Versions of Firefox. Well, I've got some auto reports, or an auto report, that uses, this is called Old Firefox, and it copies, it runs, I'll show you the triggers, but it places, yeah, sure, it places this out on a file server, in this case FSO1 webcast inventory reports. And then the file name we get to use, you can type in whatever you want. You can type in Jason's report if you want, but you can also use runtime variables. So here I'm saying add the auto report name, the collection, the collection source that you're going after, and the date and the time. And then format it as a PDF. Run this every Monday and Wednesday. I use the weekly, and I just said Monday and Friday. Every Monday and Friday at 8 a.m. to run this. Of course, I can also just right click on this and say run now, and then go out to that path, inventory reports, and there's those PDF files. Notice I've got in this auto report, what reports am I running? I'm running the same report, all old versions of Firefox, but I've got two different collection sources. One goes to Deadwood workstations and one goes to Deadwood servers. Same report. Once again, you don't have to duplicate reports, just different contexts of each one. You can also have this set up to email those reports. You can't email collections. So think of it, collections are some things that you take action on, or I can get a good quick glance at my environment. Oh, I know I've got 38 machines that have an old version of iTunes. The reports are something that you can church up and send to your manager, or keep for your own personal edification. I need some whiskey. So please start using reports and collections the way they were meant. If you look at a Venn diagram, which I don't have right now, of reports and collections, you will see that there would be some crossover. There would be some common ground where, depending on how you use them, you could use them interchangeably. But they really do have their own exclusive area, wide, vast area that they are used for. And I just would invite you to really dig into your reports, and especially the auto reports if you have the enterprise level, because that's how you can really get a good grasp on your environment, and keep your data up to date. Make sure your machines that you're not running low on disk space, etc. I mean, this is an inventory program. Use it, utilize it. I was talking to a project manager years ago from Excel. He worked for Microsoft. And he said one of the biggest frustrations that the people on the Microsoft Office teams, particularly in Excel and Access, have is that so much of their user base uses like 3% of the functionality in spreadsheets. And he's like, we're making these things so powerful, and yet people still kind of stick with that little.
I just need the sum function.
If they even know what a function is.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah,
entering every value manually.
And of course, we have a lot of videos. As long as you can stomach listening to me and looking at Lex, it's definitely looking at me.
Judging by the drop-off, no, they can't.
Cheers. So get out there and use your collections, use your reports, and use them properly, folks. And thanks for checking in. If you guys have any suggestions, things that you want for future webcasts, by all means, throw down. I'll let Kelly tell you where you can email that. All right, I'm Shane. We'll talk to you later.
Thanks for joining the webcast today. Congratulations going out to Jason A., winner of PDQ swag. Send us an email at webcast@adminarsenal.com. If you have any additional questions, make sure to hit up our support forums. That is why they are there. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you back here next week.